All right, let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're diving straight into the mechanics of active and passive voice. And look, we're not going to treat these two grammatical structures like some rigid, boring rules you just have to memorize for a test. No, these are absolutely crucial strategic tools for your writing toolkit. Honestly, whether you're firing off a quick business email, drafting a complex lab report, or putting together a legal brief, really mastering this concept is a complete game changer. It will fundamentally alter the way your words land with your audience.
I mean, just look at the immediate difference in energy right here. On the left, I drank all the milk. It's snappy, it's direct, and it takes absolute total ownership of the action. But then you look on the right, all the milk was drunk by me. It just feels, well, detached. It's a little awkward, and it's unnecessarily wordy. They are conveying the exact same fact, right? But the tone is just worlds apart. And that right there is the true power of voice. Okay, moving on to section 1, the two voices explained. Let's really look at who is doing what here. So in the active voice, the subject of your sentence is the undisputed star of the show. The subject is directly performing the action. Think of it kind of like a pitcher throwing a baseball. The pitcher is our subject, the action is throwing, and the ball is the object that's receiving that action. It's linear, it moves forward, and it leaves literally zero confusion about who is responsible for the pitch. Conversely, when we flip to the passive voice, the action's target actually becomes the main focus of the sentence. It receives the action. So sticking with our baseball analogy, the subject is now the ball, and it is being acted upon. The ball is caught by the catcher. Do you see the shift? The action is happening to the subject, rather than the subject actually driving the action forward. Now, the really absolutely crucial thing to understand is how these are built structurally. Active is super simple, right? Subject, verb, object. Boom, done. But passive sentences actually have a very specific, almost mathematical formula. They always require a conjugated form of the verb to be, so words like is, was, or has been, plus a past participle of the main verb. And then you also frequently see this little prepositional phrase tacked on at the end, starting with by, to identify the actor. Because of this whole formula, passive sentences are just inherently wordier. Which brings us to section 2, the zombie test. This is a genuinely foolproof method for spotting the passive voice. So before a sneaky passive sentence completely ruins the pacing of that brilliant email you're drafting, you really need to ask yourself this question. And the good news? You don't need to diagram the sentence like an English major to figure it out. You just need one very specific, slightly gruesome tool. Enter the highly memorable zombie test. It is brilliant, and it works exactly like this. If you can add the phrase by zombies immediately after the verb in your sentence, and the whole thing still makes perfect grammatical sense, well, you've got a passive sentence on your hands. Let's look at this brilliantly illustrated trick in action. Over on the left, the epidemiologists reassure the public by zombies. Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense, which means the sentence is active. The epidemiologist is already in there doing the action. But check out the right side. The form needs to be processed by zombies. The zombies fit absolutely perfectly into the action because there's no true subject in the way stopping them. Listen, if the zombies can effortlessly take over your sentence, run for your life. It is a passive sentence without an actor. All right, section 3, when active voice wins, we're talking about the gold standard for clarity. Active sentences win out the vast majority of the time. Why? Because they're just tighter. They move so much faster. They instantly improve readability and pacing by cutting out all those clunky, unnecessary words. And honestly, more importantly, they completely reduce ambiguity. When the subject acts directly, there's absolutely zero doubt about who is responsible for the action. It's dynamic, it's super engaging, and it just projects confidence. Let's see how this actually plays out in a high-stakes research context. On the left, we've got a very classic passive approach. No attempt was made to contact non-responders. Okay, but who exactly didn't make the attempt? It's incredibly vague. Now look at the active version on the right. We did not attempt to contact non-responders. Boom. It clearly forces the authors to step up and take direct responsibility for their own methodology. Now, historically, scientific writing was completely 100% dominated by the third-person passive voice. You know the style, writing stuff like, "The beaker was heated." But as you can see from a recent audience survey of journal instructions here, that dusty old standard is rapidly changing. We're actually seeing direct guidance from massive, prestigious publications like Nature explicitly telling authors to write in the active voice, encouraging phrases like, "We performed the experiment." This completely validates that choosing the active voice is not just some annoying high school English rule your teacher made up. It is a strict, modern professional standard for ultimate clarity.
Let's pivot to Section 4, the power of passive voice. Here comes the plot twist.
So if active voice is so incredibly great, why does passive voice even exist? Well, because sometimes it's intentionally used as a shield. Come on, we've all heard this one. Bureaucrats, politicians, PR reps, they use the passive voice all the time to deliberately hide the actor or deflect blame. Mistakes Were Made is arguably the classic, most famously evasive non-apology of all time. It cleverly acknowledges an event happened without anyone actually having to stand up at a podium and say, "Hey, I made a mistake." It's the passive voice masterfully weaponized to avoid responsibility. You see a very similar thing in legal contexts too, where the passive voice is a highly strategic, incredibly persuasive tool. Let's be real, if you are a defense attorney, you are absolutely never going to utter the active sentence on the left, "My client broke into a house." No way. Instead, you're going to shift the focus completely away from your client's specific actions and put it entirely onto the event itself. A house was broken into. It softens the blow by completely removing the actor from the picture. But hey, it's not just for being sneaky and dodging blame. Sometimes you legitimately have to use it. If the actor is totally unknown, like the cave paintings were made in the Stone Age, you use passive. Or if highlighting the result is literally the most important thing, like insulin was discovered in 1921, the passive voice absolutely shines. Whether you're trying to create a sense of formal detachment or you're writing a gripping mystery where the perpetrator is still unknown, the passive voice is perfectly valid when the recipient of the action is your true main focus. Moving to Section 5, shifting your voice. Let's talk about fixing flabby writing. Now that we really understand the unique strengths of each structure, let's explore how to actively fix flabby writing. First, though, we need a quick disclaimer represented brilliantly by this trick question from our sources. Listen, merely switching your verbs to the active voice will not magically cure a terrible draft. Actually, scratch that. It won't fix poor logical organization, imprecise language, or just genuinely terrible word choices. However, ensuring your verbs are active is an absolutely vital, non-negotiable foundation for strong writing.
To convert a weak, passive, flabby sentence into a highly dynamic active one, you really just need to follow 3 simple steps. First, figure out who is actually doing the action. Second, pull them right to the front and make them the subject. And third, follow that brand new subject immediately with the action verb and the object. You're just putting the doer of the action back where they belong, right in the driver's seat.
Let's look at this whole thing in practice. Over on the left, more flexible scheduling options are deserved by students. It just feels like we're awkwardly dancing around the topic, right? But by identifying students as the true actors and placing them front and center, we get the right side. Students deserve more flexible scheduling options. Bam! We instantly make a much more forceful, highly persuasive, and totally readable argument. Let's wrap up this explainer. And as we do, I want you to really reflect on how you actively or perhaps passively communicate every single day in your own life. Because I promise you, once you start seeing these 2 voices, you literally cannot unsee them. So here's my challenge to you. Check your outbox or your text history right now. I mean it. Look at the last few important messages you sent out into the world. Ask yourself honestly, were you hiding behind the passive voice to soften a blow? Or were you taking active, confident ownership of your words? Remember, the voice you choose entirely dictates how the world hears you. So choose wisely, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.